Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm William Chen.
And I'm Sarah Watt.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. It could be the same director, the same actor, or a similar theme. This month we are discussing Civil War, which came out this year, and Apocalypse Now, which came out in 1979. The connection being they are both films set in a war-torn zone, area, country, with a small crew on a specific mission, I guess moving along sideways to the war.
Yeah, that's right. Parallel to the war.
Nice.
And beyond that, there's some very overt homages in Civil War to Apocalypse Now.
They travel together in a vehicle.
Yes. So let's kick into Civil War. Sarah, give us a bit of an overview of this latest film from Alex Garland.
Yes, so Civil War, released this year, 2024, directed by the writer and director Alex Garland, he who wrote The Beach and 28 Days Later, and then went on to direct Annihilation, Men, and other films. So this is Alex's super big blockbuster Civil War. Spoiler alert, it's a wonderful film, an exhilarating film. It focuses on four people who are traversing the United States of America. It's set in a near future that's sadly entirely believable, where civil war has broken out between the Western, not the Western Front, what are they called?
Western Forces?
The Western Forces of California and Texas, and the rest of the United States. So the country is at war, and this group are making their way across the country to Washington, D.C., where they intend to interview and photograph the president of that United States. Now it stars Kirsten Dunst as Lee Smith, the photojournalist, the hardened photojournalist. Wagner Moura, I bet he's not called Wagner, is he? Wagner Moura, who is a Mexican actor. He's a reporter. And Kaylee Spaney, the young woman who played Priscilla most recently, as a young woman, Jessie, who wants to be a photojournalist. It's kind of a road trip movie that is much more gritty than your average road trip movie.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. Now, William, give us an overview of the 1979 film Apocalypse Now.
Okie doke. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, often seen as one of the greatest war movies ever made, and heavily documented in the terrible making of conditions of said film. It stars Martin Sheen as Captain Willard. Captain Willard, who is sent on a mission by his superiors to identify and kill Kurtz, a military man, decorated, who's gone AWOL in the jungles of Cambodia. Along the way, he and his crew on their little boat will encounter both literal and metaphorical ghosts of war, and see their psyches and their emotions being torn apart by what's happening in Vietnam and Indochina.
Yep. And so it's basically a road movie, but much grittier than your average
also on water, yes.
That's right.
Great, both of them have
so
great
it's really
music.
more like Jungle Cruise. So
Okay. Less puns. Okay, so just so you know, listeners, we will be spoilering both films. There are some nice surprises in here. I think it's fair to say the kind of plot twists aren't what you go to these movies for, which I think makes both of these movies very big candidates for rewatching. But hey, we're warning you so that you're aware. And I just want to clarify before we jump in, which version of Apocalypse Now did you watch? Because it famously has multiple versions.
Yes.
It has the original theatrical, the Redux from 2003, I believe, or 2002.
2001, I think.
2001,
yeah.
Okay. And then there's the final cut, which came out
2019.
That's right.
Yeah.
So which one did
I
you watch?
watched the digitally remastered final cut from 2019, which actually we saw on its release at the Bologna Film Festival with Francis Ford Coppola in attendance back in 2019. So that's when he re-released it, because it was at the Cinema Ritrovato, so the Restored Cinema Festival. festival in Bologna, so it made sense. So we saw it then, and then watched it again properly on a Blu-ray.
Nice. William?
I watched the streaming version of Redux.
Ooh,
Yes.
this is great because I watched the theatrical
Hey.
version. So we've kind of covered all bases.
So I'll have seen scenes that you're aware of but didn't see in your version just now, probably.
I think actually the 2019 version cuts bits out of Redux, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But it's longer, because ours is 3 hours, 2 minutes.
My understanding is Redux is the longest version.
Yeah.
And Coppola cut, there were scenes with the Playboy bunnies and stuff that were removed to streamline the whole thing.
Oh, no, that's in
Yeah.
my version.
Where they sleep with the Playboy bunnies, and they're in the muddy, there's like the
Oh, there's no
typhoon.
sleeping with. They get on a helicopter and take off.
Yeah, so there's a whole sequence in the Redux where they meet up with them again.
Are you kidding me? Well, who has the French plantation scenes? Because I do.
It's in Redux as well, but I think
But
that
it's not in the
shorter.
theatrical cut.
It is shorter in the final cut, right? Slightly shorter. There's scenes removed from the plantation.
I don't know, because he definitely goes... Spoiler! He definitely goes as far as to smoke opium with the widow. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that definitely that scene was not included in the theatrical cut. So, listeners, Apocalypse Now was my favourite film for the longest time, and it's now only been edged out slightly by Alien because I just watch Alien more.
Yes. But it's more well, we'll get into this, but Alien's more enjoyable. I find Apocalypse Now not enjoyable, but compelling and admirable.
I think it's just Apocalypse Now, I have to invest
Yes.
Hours,
a
many
significant
hours.
time.
And
I have to-
energy, yeah.
in a zen
focus.
state. You kind of have
Yeah.
to go into that film, not high, but it's that you have to kind of
Surrender to it.
Surrender to the film. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I love Apocalypse Now. When I first saw that as a university student, it blew my mind. I just found the whole vibe of the film, the focus on the horrors of war, the horrors of the Vietnam-American War, but through this, again, opium you mentioned, LSD,
Yeah.
rock and roll, swirling, whirling sort of horrorscape. Very, very impressive. So I'm a big fan of this film. And I actually first fell in love with this movie with the Redux. So I used to watch it on DVD because it was the only one available for the longest time. And it wasn't until I think I bought either a DVD or a Blu-ray. I've got a Blu-ray of it now and watched the theatrical cut. I prefer the tighter version of the film.
Yeah.
And I like the extra Playboy bunny sequence or the,
The French plantation or...
what's Killjoy? Is it Killjoy?
Kilgore.
Kilgore trying to find his
surfboard.
board. There's these moments that are great, but there is something about the original that is it really balances the commercial aspect with the artistry.
Yes.
And my understanding from all the reading I've done around this film is that Coppola and his editor or producer, they did that on purpose because they were getting a lot of heat from the critics that it was Apocalypse When, because it was taking so long to make. That they needed to make the most commercially viable version of this film, and that's the one that went to Cannes, and I believe won the Palme d'Or.
It did, but it's interesting because it won the Palme d'Or, but it was unfinished. So chopsing in here.
Yeah, go.
So apparently you're absolutely right. The film took 4 years to make. Did you know that Lawrence Fishburne...
He was 14.
He was 14 when
Yeah.
he started filming, and he'd lied about his age. He'd 14 when he started filming and 18 when the film came out. So that's how you track it.
But watching it now, it's like, oh my god, these people are so young.
Yes. Yeah.
When Harrison
And
Ford
gorgeous.
appears at the beginning, it's like, oh.
No, but you know what?
He
He's
looks
37.
so young.
But he's 37.
But he's baby-faced. Han Solo doesn't look baby-faced.
That's true. So you're absolutely right with the Cannes thing. Coppola and, as you say, his producer Villiers, I think, or whomever, who I believe is also one of the screenwriters.
John
yes, Milius, that's it. So they're getting it
Mr.
in the
Red Dawn.
getting it in the neck for taking so long, and the chaotic filming, and the over budget, and the years in the jungle, and so on and so forth. And so went to Cannes and got excellent feedback. Because if you want to go anywhere with a controversial film, I would say go give it to the French, and they'll give you the great feedback for it. And that was really vindicating, and that will have helped enormously to bring the film back, and you know what I mean, and get it out there.
Well, this is going to sound a little bit, please don't judge me for this.
Like a Philistine. Are you
Yes,
about to be a
like-
Philistine?
Why don't you leave the table?
Okay, you may hold on to your butts. The first time I watched this movie was this... No, it wasn't.
No, not on an airplane.
2002, I saw this movie, Redux, for the first time on VCD.
Ooh.
What's VCD?
It's like the video CD, so that was the precursor to DVD before they got all fancy schmats.
But it was like low, like it was like
real low quality.
It was like the storage of a CD, wasn't it? Compact disc.
And so it was over 4 discs. And so I think what had happened was, it was like some preview version for the DVD. I don't know. I got it from one of my brother's friends. And I remember really not enjoying it because it just felt like a slog.
Yeah.
Like every 45 minutes, switch discs. And then, watching it real grainy on a not very good, tube TV, it just, I did not enjoy the film. I've seen it a couple of times in the interim, and then this time watching it for our show, like I think it's great.
Can I just say how meta that when you first watched it, it felt like a slog, because it probably felt like that to the people in the war and on set in the Philippines when they were filming. But it would have felt like
waiting for Marlon Brando to show up.
That's right. So in a way, perfect, because you're actually in there feeling it as an audience member, feeling what they're all going through.
But I think, in retrospect, having seen the theatrical now and going back to the Redux, I really appreciate what the Redux is doing, which is, it does actually feel a little bit bloated. But having those extra scenes in there and just making it more of a, almost like Shaggy Dog story in bits. Like the French plantation scene adds nothing to the story, right?
It's plot-wise, it adds nothing. But I was talking to Reddit last. Have you heard of Reddit?
Yeah.
Oh,
so I was talking to Reddit.
Man.
Yeah. So I was talking to Reddit about it, and like Reddit, who kind of strangely has lots of different views. Reddit was saying it adds nothing to the plot, but then it was also saying, but of course it adds context to the French's position, and it is actually analogous with the whole, we're here, we're staying, we're not leaving, this is our place, and the digging the heels in, dogmatic kind of, as well as just that, I'm trying to think of what the word is that's not anachronistic. It's the juxtaposition between the jungle and the poverty and the death and the horribleness and the filth and everything, and then you go to this beautiful house where everyone's eating off china. What's that called? Where you've
juxtaposition,
I suppose, right? And it's quite jarring, isn't it? That all of a sudden he, our friend Willard, lovely Martin Sheen, wasn't he good looking? He was 36.
Yeah.
He's so unhealthy though. He had a heart attack.
Well, and also,
filming.
Did you know? I haven't worked as hard as I have for this film for most of our podcasts, can I just say? And you probably did. And everyone listening will be like, everybody knows this, Sarah. The film came out in 79. Yeah. But did you know that in that opening scene where Captain Willard is in the hotel room waiting for a commission, that was filmed on Martin Sheen's 36th birthday, and he was actually really, really drunk, and he's all thrashing about and hits the mirror and crushes his hand, and it was all accidental and improvised, and Coppola wanted to stop filming, and he's like, just keep going, kind of thing. And so that was all completely real, and the blood and everything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so so Reddit feels like, some of them on Reddit feel like that French plantation scene has its place.
Oh, yeah. I'm not arguing about that. Like, I think it rules. I think all the scenes added in. The Playboy Bunny stuff, again, it's just weird. It shows you this descent to madness.
Absolutely, and it's context, isn't it? Because there was crazy shit going on.
Yeah.
And then you're just along for the ride.
Yeah.
Like, as an audience member, you read a lot of reviews. Like, I think Ebert very famously had a review. It's like, this is not just a war movie. It is about the experience of war, right?
Yeah.
And what these soldiers, especially these American soldiers, because it is a very American context, had to go through in their mental state.
Yeah.
And then, the moment LSD is starting to be taken in copious amounts, the movie just gets weird.
That's right.
With the French plantation scene, I mean, Coppola's come out and said things to the effect of he didn't get the actors that he wanted. It was cobbled together. He wasn't able to.
Roman Coppola's in the movie.
Right.
Yeah, as the little kid.
Oh, true. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, but that whole sequence, it wasn't able to be what he wanted it to be. And what I always take away from that French plantation sequence is there are things you can take. The complexity of the history of the conflict and the colonial Western rule in this country. But there's a real lack of focus in that whole sequence. I'm not really clear and it's not like a confident ambiguity. It's a messy ambiguity.
I agree with you. I do agree with you.
And so I think that whilst I enjoy those sequences and I always think of them fondly, that's why I prefer the theatrical. Because everything has a place and a purpose.
Yeah.
And the only thing about the theatrical that I find quite jarring is that both the Lawrence Fishburne character and the captain die quite successfully quickly from one another, whereas at least the French plantation sequence sort of spreads that shock out a little bit.
Right.
But I'll happily.
I see what you're saying. What you're saying. Absolutely, because they are grieving. Clean, is that Lawrence Fishburne's character?
Mr. Clean.
They're grieving Mr. Clean, that's exactly right. Then you have the protracted sorted and the funeral and everything about it, which is so beautiful actually.
Yeah.
You see, you wouldn't have had the funeral if you didn't have the French plantation scene.
Yeah.
And I found it very touching. Well, so this is interesting to me now I think about it, because to me, one of the crazy things about Apocalypse Now, and there are a few, one of the crazy things is that there is wanton death and destruction. And I do find the Ride of the Valkyries scene, and I know we're supposed to, I find it morally reprehensible, and I know we're supposed to, but I find it grotesque and desperately uncomfortable. And then, of course, you've got Robert Duvall's character going, savages or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you just gunned down innocent or not so innocent people. But anyway, my point being, you get the sense that they're killing and who really cares? And then suddenly some kid dies in the most sentimental of ways because he's listening to his mother's voice on tape. Yeah. And suddenly there and Albert Hill's character, the captain, is crying at the graveside, and we're having this poignant kind of moment that reminds us we're part of a team, we've lost one of our team members, he was too young, this is sad, before they then go back and then there's, more kind of wanton violence and death.
The other part of that whole dynamic is there's a real showing of how class divides were kind of smashed together in that war. And there's a conversation where I think Willard talks to Chief, and he's like, "Oh, come on, stop this kid from making all this noise." And he's like, maybe he's just as pissed off with you. And there's this kind of this. All the different worlds. You've got the surfer, you've got the chef from New Orleans, you've got this kid from the Bronx. I assume it's the Bronx or somebody.
They do mention he's just the kid from the Bronx.
And so it's like coming together on this little ship, and it's again like they are this representation of not just the war, but different parts of America being smashed together, which I find really fascinating. And it's not
segue to our other film.
Wow, here we go. Civil War. Well, William and I saw this together at the cinema.
Yes.
And I loved your comment, William, that we should have paid half price.
We should have had a partial refund because we were only occupying a quarter of our seat, having sat on the edge of it.
I loved that. That's brilliant.
Oh gosh, what an experience that movie was.
Right.
Again, as you were saying, Jeremy, lots of shades of Children of Men. 28 Days Later, like other really
Apocalypse
Now, harrowing road trips.
Yes.
That should be our theme, harrowing road trips.
Yeah.
And then using kind of this backdrop of civil unrest that we see now in the States as the catalyst for something grander. To make a point about something quite poignant, which I think is awesome.
I saw it the first time to review it and really, really thought it was terrific. And it was, as you say, edge of seatness. I went back and watched it last week or the week before just to refresh my memory. And it was in no way as gripping for obvious reasons because you knew... And we're allowed to spoiler this one, aren't we? Yeah. So you know that someone's going to die or that someone's going to live or whatever. And for example, right in the early scenes when little Jessie goes around the corner of the garage, the gas station, and then that thug kind of follows her, and you immediately go, "Oh my God." Something horrific is going to happen to her along sexual lines. That's their presumption. Well, that was my presumption. And then it turns... I just adored how Alex Garland subverts your expectations so many times. I thought she was going to go around the corner and there would be an attempted sexual assault of some kind, but instead she sees a couple of men who are in the process almost of being lynched, and it becomes some other kind of grotesque kind of scene. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And because you're not sure what the purpose is of that scene. We've seen that trope so many times.
That's right.
Whereas it becomes that moment for, again, it's that relationship between Kirsten Dunst and, what's her name?
Jessie. Kaylee Spaney is the actress.
She was incredible.
Yeah.
I thought she was, and Kirsten Dunst, the performances in this film from those two. I have some questionable, I think there's some questionable performances from other people in the film.
Tell me who?
Not performances. Who's the journalist?
Joel.
some of his screaming moments, I just thought, oh, it's a bit over the top.
Oh, you see, I didn't mind it because, and maybe I am quite basic sometimes, but I did really get the point that he was so exhilarated by the war.
He was an adrenaline junkie.
He was an adrenaline junkie.
And especially at the end where he sees that his friend Lee she's down and out. And no time to mourn. We gotta get the mission done.
Right.
And he has this wide-eyed, fervor throughout the whole thing. I thought it worked.
I liked his emotional roller coaster though, because he was an adrenaline junkie and he was always swigging the vodka. And he's saying to Jessie, "You better get sleep right where you can." And he's like, "Can we go over there tomorrow to where the gunfire is happening?" And then the roller coaster for him is that suddenly, Sammy, the old journalist, is killed, and it's horrific, and there's the bodies in the mass grave, and it's all too much for him, and he has to let it out somehow. I loved it, and I loved that it was done in silence because we didn't hear his screams, and also the fact that all of the Western forces troops were just walking past him because they've seen it all before, and this is how people are reacting to what's going on. I loved the normalcy of that.
Yeah,
personally.
fair enough. I mean, I think it's one of those personal things where it either connects or doesn't. And in that moment, it's sort of just, I thought, oh, okay, this is... And it wasn't actually about him. It was more the choices, the editing choices that for you worked there. And for me, I thought, okay, this is a lot.
Too on the nose, kind of.
I felt it too on the nose.
In terms of too on the nose, I do want to bring up the ending of the film, which I think you quite enjoyed it, Jeremy. But the whole thing with
the photograph,
I
loved it.
Her taking the photo of Kirsten Dunst being shot, and it was like, okay, well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen.
And do you know what? She mentions it early in the film.
I know.
Which I didn't know at the time.
It was such a setup payoff.
But no, I didn't.
Boy, this feels pretty artificial.
You know, you pay more attention than I do. The first time I watched it, I didn't pick that up. When she said, "If I died, would you take my picture?" And she was like, "Yes." I didn't pick that up in the first viewing, but obviously the second one I did because I heard her say it, and I know what's going to happen.
The photograph I appreciated was the one at the end, smiling around the president.
So did I.
This is like perfect ending.
Super clever, because it was not a candid shot of people doing their business. It was one, and it evoked for me those horrific early 2000s photographs from Afghanistan and Iraq with American troops standing over...
Or Guantanamo Bay.
And that's right.
Specifically that one.
That's exactly right. The prisoners on dog leads, all that stuff that happened, which was really grotesque. And I think
these
it's
are
very
the good
clever.
Guys.
That's right. So interesting, because actually, you see, so that throughout rewatching Apocalypse Now, I'm writing all these notes because I'm like, that's just like in, and so on and so forth. And there are in Apocalypse Now, there are the different responses. There's the exhilaration of
Kilgore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wants to surf. I mean,
he is just having the time of his life.
So funny the way he's like, Johnson, what do you reckon? What do you reckon? He's like, it's very exciting, sir. He's like, no, the waves. What do you think of the waves?
I love the moment, and it's purely Robert Duvall doing the best of that writing. And he goes, someday this war's going to end. And then he pulls a kind of face and walks away. And you're like, oh my gosh, you psycho. This is your playground.
He's sending his men into mortar fire just to catch the wave.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, lads, don't you see? The wave breaks as it comes to it breaks.
It must have been based on real people. I feel like that must be based on real people.
I've certainly never read the Conrad book.
It's brilliant.
Heart of Darkness and
Conrad book.
Sorry.
I have read Heart of Darkness.
read it.
I have read Heart of Darkness. So I guess it's worth mentioning that this is based on Heart of Darkness, and Heart of Darkness is one of those canon texts that has been very rightfully criticised by African scholars. Because it presents the African people as the other.
The counterpoint to European civilization.
Yeah, and they become a backdrop for the darkness of the heart.
But the film doesn't go like that.
No, the film kind of avoids it because it positions it very clearly as from a cynical perspective of the American presence there.
Yeah.
I think Heart of Darkness is also really interesting because in my opinion, it's not really Conrad's position, right? It's his character's positions that is the case. And they're awfully flawed characters in Heart of Darkness. Or, they're super flawed in Apocalypse Now as well.
But it's still the book still presents, regardless of layers of storytelling, it still presents African people in a very othering and monstrous way. And it's, very rightfully, like I said, being criticised in scholarship. I mean, that's part of my degree, people. Part of my English degree.
But am I right in saying that Heart of Darkness is necessarily? I mean, obviously the plot is more than vaguely the same, but it's also it's an anti-war. It's an
anti-colonial. It's not war. It's colonization. So he's going into Congo and to find this colonel or someone who's Kurtz.
Oh, so it is
he's
different.
Kurtz is an ivory trader who's quote unquote gone native.
Oh, good lord! I see. Well, that is so different because suddenly Apocalypse Now feels like a more. Oh, forgive me. I don't know because I haven't read the Conrad book, but feels like a more meaningful text because it's actually got the complexities of. I mean, look, Marlon Brando's Colonel Kurtz is a complex character, not just because he's played by Marlon Brando and we know about all of the issues that they had filming and getting him out of his trailer and the way he takes the law into his own hands and things like that. But I mean, a complex character because he's turned his back on the militarization, the military. And
Heart of Darkness is brilliant. Don't get me wrong.
To kind of bounce off what you're saying, Sarah, I think that is the point that Heart of Darkness makes as well.
Yeah,
because Kurtz completely turns his back on what they perceive as European superiority.
Got you. I see. So it is a political novel.
And then when they bring him back, he dies en route.
Right.
So spoilers for Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, right.
It's the kind of the gold of that story. That's why I feel like Apocalypse Now is the best adaptation of that because it takes the complexity of that and the kind of investigation into again, not to be punny, but the Heart of Darkness.
Yes.
Right? But it
shifts the context.
It shifts the context, and whilst the depiction of the Vietnamese people is very limited,
pretty problematic.
There, you alluded to the Valkyrie sequence, and I think the part that always gets me, the gut punch that always gets me, that helps allay some of my complications with the depiction of the Vietnamese people, is that cut between the bum bum ba dum bum bum and the hard cut to the silent piece for the kids singing,
the schoolyard,
going to school, and just showcasing this is just a community living their lives, and it's about to be decimated. It's not the post-war destruction that can kind of feed into the ongoing stereotypes. So,
which I think kind of draws me to a point about Apocalypse Now, which I truly don't understand. How can people view this film as a pro-war movie?
Who does?
There's so much. I was reading this thing. This is not off our mutual friend
not
Reddit, but of our other mutual friend Wikipedia.
Good lord!
Where people have said when they were en route to the first Gulf War, they would watch as a platoon.
Yes.
Apocalypse Now to get them amped up.
Yes.
And what the heck?
But
Apocalypse Now is so gut-wrenchingly awful and shows you what a bad time it is to be a soldier heading into, enemy territory.
Have you seen... So Francis Ford Coppola's talked about this, and he says that he feels uncomfortable when people put the label of Apocalypse Now being an anti-war film. Because he says for him, an anti-war film would be, showing an Iranian or Iraqian wedding and the celebration of family and life before some horrors of war, that's the anti-war film is one of the great things about life. And so he's very aware that he is playing off the glorification of violence to make it an exciting film. Because despite it being a gut punch, we're still watching a thrilling action sequence with exploding walkways and I feel like
I think
the
we
film
are
can have
only,
its cake and eat it
only
too.
for the Flight of the Valkyrie sequence though, because every other action sequence is a mucky, violent mess, and people go and firing all over the place, and there's nothing cool about it.
And they're not having a good time.
But I mean, as an audience member, there is a satisfying payoff to a coked up or LSD'd out fighter coming out of the shadows and firing his gun and blowing up there's that sequence later on.
Oh, sorry, but that's every time that happens, something awful happens, such as Mr. Clean dying,
Yeah,
or Chief being shot with arrows.
I think something can only feel like a pro-war film if the protagonists are having a good time. And this is why I love Godfather and all the gangster movies for the 2/3 of the film when everybody is rich and they are having a lovely time and wearing fur coats and lovely jewels. Life is good.
The
And
whole
I go,
Scarface thing.
and I go, this is the job for me until the end of the film when everybody dies and goes to prison. So for me, if this now, so let's and I would like to pivot to our other film just quickly. There are scenes in Civil War where our plucky band of journalists, photojournalists, track what's the word? They're embedded with these troops, and we don't know who the troops, what side they're on particularly, or who they're fighting, but they are having a good time.
Oh,
and
right.
they shoot up a bunch of shit, they kill a bunch of people,
Well,
and then they
Moore
take
is
them out.
having beers and high-fiving guys.
Right, and then they
Yeah.
take them out and they execute them, and they're having an exhilaratingly good time. So that, I think, is more complex in terms of pro or anti, if you get what I mean. Because to me, there wasn't anybody except Robert Duvall having a good time in Apocalypse Now. Because even Lance Johnson, the surfer, L.B. Johnson, goes from being, kind of garrulous and kind of fun and all that, to then taking the LSD, to then descending into complete mute, nothing left to say, and just sort of having to be rescued by Willard at the end.
My argument would be, I don't think that Apocalypse Now is a pro-war film.
I don't
get me
either.
wrong, but I also don't think it's an anti-war film.
Right.
I think that that's a big label to put on any war film that is actually still playing off the ups and downs of action.
Okay. Okay.
And so that, I think it can be
So
both.
it's just a war film.
I think so. And I think like any good war film will highlight the horrors of war. I don't know if there's, unless you go back to like the I don't even know when you'd go back. Were there any films made that really celebrate the glory of war?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Absolutely. And then 40s and post-40s and all that. Absolutely.
John Wayne, like Iwo Jima movie. Sorry, I have a brownie in my mouth.
Which, by the way, Sarah's made, and they are delectable.
Iwo Jima.
Yep.
Jima. All that stuff about America and the Pacific.
Yeah, right.
All that
Okay.
stuff.
I haven't seen this film, so
So, Civil War, let's just look briefly. I'd like to just make a few very small connections. So, did you know? We know that Kirsten Dunst plays Lee Smith, the photojournalist, hardened photojournalist, who the dead eyes kind of like... She's just doing this thing. We know very little about her life other than that she has a family back home who are pretending it's not happening, which I also think is a really lovely parallel with Apocalypse Now, because the people in America, we know, obviously, had their views about whether the Vietnam War should or shouldn't be going on, but they're living their life. Isn't it fascinating that in Civil War, they're in the same country, and they're like, oh, where are your parents? Oh, they're in Minnesota. I don't think it was Minnesota, Missouri, Iowa, whatever, sitting on their farm pretending like none of this is happening. And there's also that amazing scene where they go into the small town.
I said to William, I was like, is this the prequel to A Quiet Place?
I know. And
like
she's
A Quiet
like,
Place.
hi, if you want to try anything on, let me know.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you aware that this? And she's like, we just try to keep out of it.
Yeah.
And
And there's snipers on the building.
but it's amazing because it's true.
Yeah.
And it's fair enough on some levels.
Yeah.
And so on. Anyway, sorry. So coming back to, did you know, and you probably do because everybody knows this more than I, in Apocalypse Now, there's the early scene where they just arrive.
Just keep going. Don't look at the camera.
Yes, just keep going. Don't look at the camera, which we know is Francis Ford Coppola and
Yeah.
his cinematographer. So that's super cute. Did you know that Eleanor Coppola, his wife, who made the documentary about the making of the film, she's the photojournalist in the background shooting dead bodies.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Just like Kirsten Dunst, who gets in there the minute that the bomb goes off, she's up, she's there, she's shooting the dead bodies in an impartial way. And I thought, well, there's a comparison.
Can I say, before you go on to your next comparison and have a bit of a cough?
I have a list.
I just want to commend Kirsten Dunst. What an incredible career she's had. You know, she's a child actor, and then she went on to do Bring It On and the Spider-Mans. You know, effectively Popcorn Fare.
Yeah.
And then she successfully pivoted to, your Lars von Trier and your Jane Campions. I mean, I still love her in Fargo. We talked about that. She's had an incredible career. What an established actor. And I want to say surprisingly so, because I think if you look at her as a child and as a teen star, I would not have predicted that the lead actress of Bring It On would go on to have such a successful career. Very impressive, and lovely to see Jessie Plemmons in there, her husband,
as always.
And he came in last minute, I believe, as a last minute ring in.
And isn't he a standout?
He's just he MVPs every movie he's
doesn't
in,
he?
right?
He's so he does. And Game Night, as you know, is one of my most favourite films of all time. And I can't believe I just said that. I'll think about it, but I think it is. It's one of my most fun and enjoyable films of all time. He totally MVPs that film, doesn't he? But of course. His character in that and his character in Breaking Bad, so different from this insidious character with the red sunglasses.
Well, I think the one thing joining these three characters you just mentioned is he is preternaturally calm.
Yes.
He doesn't fly off the handle, and that's what makes Jessie Plemons' character so scary.
That's right, because you just don't know for sure. The fact that he's like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
And where are you from?
Have you seen Fargo season 2?
I've only seen the one with Kirsten and Jessie.
Right, and Jen Smart.
Yes.
Oh, because that's where they met, right? They became good
That's
friends.
right.
That's right. I think they started dating after they finished rapping.
Yeah, that's right. They became
rap
friends.
filmmaking.
I've read it on. It wasn't Reddit actually, but it was similar because it was on the internet.
I've heard of that.
And I read that they got together because they were like bonding over being child stars who had made it into adulthood. I suppose without.
Can I just say I mentioned to you earlier that I rewatched The Sixth Sense last night. My housemate had never seen it, which was a fun time, and didn't know the twist. But there's a sequence where Bruce Willis has to go and kind of investigate into the potential pathology of Haley Joel Osment's character. And he goes and pulls up these tomes from the basement.
Yeah.
And my housemate turned to me and was like, before Google.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's writing in the margin of the book,
And that was much more gripping. I have to say, that was something quite lovely about Civil War, is that they couldn't really phone. Well, I mean, they certainly don't in Apocalypse. Oh, that's a lie. They do have a phone occasionally in Apocalypse Now. But in Civil War, mobile phones weren't working. I quite like films. It was quite refreshing. It was almost freeing and relaxing.
Well, also, it helps because otherwise, why are they taking so much physical film, But it adds to the kind of integrity of what's going on.
I've read about real life photojournalists saying like that's what they would actually do. You would take a digital camera and a real life camera, DSLR into a war zone like that because they, picture quality and all this stuff. So the film portrayed us in the good light.
Well, no, that's funny you say that.
Is that a pun?
That's funny you say that because on my Reddit, there was a dude who was like...
This episode's been sponsored by Reddit.
So on my Reddit, there was this guy and he was like, oh my God. No, he didn't speak like that, but he was like, actually, as a photographer, I have a lot of issues with Civil War because if I were ever shooting blah and blah, I'd be using a this and a that.
Yeah, but everybody's a photographer these days and they're all going to have their own opinions.
But then at the bottom, this person replies and says... so it's about the Western forces of Texas and California banding together, and that's your biggest problem with the suspension of disbelief? And it was like,
all right, back to your list. What have you got?
Okay, hi. So, absolutely loved the youth movements. So the fact that I love that scene in Civil War where they go and they pull up at the arena, and there's young people. There's who are the youngest people now? Millennials or Gen Z?
Gen Alpha.
Okay, not that young, but the Gen Zs.
Gen Zs.
Yeah.
And they're like running the show, and they're like, you can come in and you can park over there, and there's this lovely peace camp with families and everything. And I loved the idea that when the world goes to pot, it's the young people protesting Vietnam, it's the young people who are out there trying to do some good about it. And I absolutely adored that scene in Civil War. And okay, I've put here as one thing that both films have in common: sobering. Yeah. Hey, do you think that's good? That's right.
The music as well. I just highlight the
good.
music. Apocalypse Now, they have, of course, the needle drops with great rock music.
That's right.
But also they, Francis Ford Coppola, famously or infamously, collected together multiple composers who all fought over the score.
Yeah.
But they put reeds through the synthesizer and the helicopter the helicopter rumbles through
Yes.
the synthesizer, and that's how they kind of built this soundscape of music.
Do you like it though? Because I had read that that's what he'd done. He'd made it quite synthy because it's actually his composer was going to be his brother-in-law, David Shire, and in the end he didn't use him. He used his dad. So Coppola's dad, Carmine, I think.
Who did Godfather 3.
Right, was his composer. But I didn't love some of the synthy kind of bits. What do you feel about the score?
I think it fits with the visuals at least, especially when stuff gets psychedelic. Lance with his flares and all that stuff, and once you actually get to Kurtz's compound, it's like, okay, this fits perfectly.
Yeah.
And it's sort of otherworldly. You know, you're drawing from the sounds of the Vietnam War, but it's very kind of twisted. And there's a moment in Civil War where I turned to William and I was like, "This is effectively the Doors."
That's right.
This is like
So,
the Doors ripoff.
It is the most exciting part of Civil War, and because I was in the cinema this time, I Shazammed it.
Did you actually?
Yeah, I Shazammed the tune.
Oh wow!
No, because this was I was in the Point Sylvia Park. There was like 3 of us in the
You
cinema.
had your phone on
and the
in
other
the cinema?
Yeah, but I wasn't like videoing it, guys. But I Shazammed.
Ryan Gosling tells you to turn that stuff off.
Well, he didn't tell me. So so now I'm madly trying to. I know what it is. Can't believe. Oh, it's De La Soul. It's Say No, Go, De La Soul. During the executions, it is the most exhilarating.
Is this when the three guys with the bags over the head and they all get shot?
It's before, yes, it's that scene where they're coming out of the they've done that big shoot up in the Children of Men set and in the abandoned whatever it is.
Going up the staircase,
Right.
Children of Men style.
Oh my god, it's so exciting. But then yes, the music bursts in and for a moment you think this is really inappropriate, and yet actually it totally works. So whoever Alex Garland's music supervisor is an absolute genius, because there's terrific things there. Obviously they use the Doors, don't they? This is the end, at the beginning and at the end. Because at the beginning of the film it's signifying that this is the end of the world because we're at war, and then at the end it's because it's the end.
Of the film?
That's right. This is the end of the movie.
You know that he found a specific recording, because Francis Ford Coppola went to film school with what's his name? Jim Morrison? Is it he the Doors? And they found a recording where
I did not know that.
You know, they're kind of like the F me, that was found through one of the tracks, and so they kind of accentuated that through the Apocalypse Now mix.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I just mention as well, Dennis Hopper is so great.
is.
So clearly out of his brain, literally. And adds this energy to the film.
Manic.
And again, like randomness that works. And he's there as this sort of court jester.
Yeah.
And he's the photojournalist, right? So there's the connection
that's
with
right,
Civil
that's
War.
right.
And I know these are the classic lines because the whole time watching it, Doug would like repeat lines like Charlie don't surf and things like that. But the way he goes, are they going to say he's a kind man? He's a good man? And it's just, there are just lines out there.
No way, man.
That's right. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And you can see why those 70s men, I was just about to say something completely redundant, which is just, you can see why DuVall and Hopper and Sheen and Brando, and that they were
icons.
Absolutely. I'm very relieved that Jack Nicholson's not in the film because I find him a little annoying.
But I mean, even Brando, you know, with all the happenings on behind the scenes, like when he appears, gosh, he makes an
delivers,
impact.
doesn't he?
And I love the anecdotes about how he was overweight, so they filmed his face in darkness, and he's like the human version of Bruce the Shark from Jaws, right? They're taking something that doesn't work and kind of just showing you glimpses, and it makes it so much more mysterious and affecting.
Which I think is another reason why I prefer the theatrical, because there's a couple more shots in the Redux where he goes and he pulls Willard out of a shipping container or something.
Right,
and you sort of see more of his body. And
when he's reading the Time magazine article.
I think so. And it's just, I think I like the mystery of it more.
Right.
You know? And that whole amazing sequence at the end where it's intercutting with the cutting of the cow.
Yeah. Oh,
which
my
is
God.
That's real.
I know.
It's real, but
horrifying.
But do you know that he didn't ask for that to happen? So Coppola simply, apparently, that's the controversial scene, right?
Yeah.
And it is horrifying watching that machete go through that live beast. But apparently that indigenous tribe were doing that sacrifice anyway, and Coppola just said, well, can I film it?
What I read was that he saw this happening in the Philippines, so he asked them to redo it. Which is I mean, yeah, it's just a nasty ass 70s thing to do.
It is.
There's so much of the making of this movie that's just a mess.
Did you know those Playmates were actual Playmates?
Yeah.
Okay, you did. All right.
Like,
I'm running out of trivia here.
this is, I mean, well.
Oh no, I've got more trivia. I've got more. Did you know that one of the characters, whose surname is Corman, is named after Roger Corman? And did you know that one of them, so Harrison Ford's character is called Lucas, is G. Lucas, Lieutenant G. Lucas, named after George Lucas?
I was just going to say, with Lucas, I find it incredible how the original plans, where Milius was writing it, was for George Lucas to go in with the team to South Vietnam while the war was still happening and film real soldiers fighting in the Vietnam War.
Wow.
That is insane.
Wow.
And then obviously Fox and the people in charge were like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so Lucas ended up going to do Star Wars.
Can you imagine in a parallel universe if that had happened and George Lucas had been killed and we never would have gone and had Star Wars?
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about George Lucas making this film, because if you look at his early films with American Graffiti and THX, his sensibility would fit really nicely.
And Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right? The whole thing about Star Wars was that the rebels were the Viet Cong and the Empire were the Americans. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then he just becomes he becomes the Lucas of the 2000s, and it's all about the money.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, just to be a bit of an apologist for the prequels, he did some stuff with those prequels that really are impressive. He did lots of stuff that's not impressive. But, if you look at those prequels and now in retrospect comparing them to the latest ones, it's like... Yeah. All right, beginning off track. Let's do final thoughts. Sarah, start us off.
Final thoughts? What are you kidding me? I've got a whole list here.
Can I say one more thing before we
Please.
get into my final thoughts?
Go.
Okay, so I really enjoyed Civil War, but I have one big bone to pick. My beef, with Civil War is that I know some people, especially Americans online, have been saying things about the movie, and that it uses very, very current, very, very politically charged imagery to not talk about politics.
Yeah.
And I find that to be fascinating.
Do you find it to be true? I don't find it to be true.
I find that to be totally true. I mean, it's about journalism, right? It's about the ethics of journalism. That is the theme of the movie.
Sure.
Everything else is set dressing, which is fine. I personally am okay with that. It's totally cool. Like, that is not what the movie is interested in.
I agree with that.
And yet, what I do agree with the detractors about is that everything around the movie, the advertising, the trailers, the posters are all playing upon this, oh gosh, the world's going to caca, and November is coming, Hoffman is Trump, and all that stuff. And it is a lie, basically. I don't know how much input Alex Garland had into that, but, it jimmied up a whole bunch of interest, and people went to see a movie which was not about what the movie is about. And to use kind of very, very real anxieties and tensions to kind of fuel marketing for something that is quite different. I don't know. Something about that feels very disingenuous. Incredibly disingenuous.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, a lot of people have got up in arms about the fact that, it's not political, as in it doesn't say who the real baddies are. And I feel as though my argument for that would be, if you are polemical in the way that you make your film, and you're doing it from an angle that says this is clearly Trump or whatever, then you are alienating half the audience, right? Because half the population voted for Trump. And that is not the point of making a film or making a point. And so I think that he was clever to say, for example, Texas and California, because those of us who have any sort of clue about the states, and you don't have to have much of a clue, and I don't profess to, can go, okay, there's a neutral decision there. This is placing this in the bounds of possibility, but not... this is not holding up a mirror to a situation. My argument about the trailer is, I agree that when I first saw the trailers, I thought, this is going to be one of those end of the world kind of apocalypse kind of films, and it didn't quite get to that, but I didn't care because the narrative and the story and the characterization propelled it.
Right.
And it felt to me that every time, it's just the same with Apocalypse Now, to my mind. every time they stopped and they encountered people who were like, I'm trying to kill a guy who's trying to kill me, it did speak to the banality. It did speak to, it was it's implicitly a political film without being a Democrat-Republican film.
That's not kind of what I was getting. I guess Apocalypse Now is different because it is 110% about the Vietnam experience,
Sure.
right? Whereas this, it's using very, very charged imagery to be about something else. And the fact that it does so without actually addressing that, the elephant or the donkey in the room, I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way. It doesn't have to be about that stuff, but if you set it in a completely different world, completely different, alternate timeline, and this is kind of, again, some of this is the advertising, some of this is text in the film. It's like, this could happen the day after tomorrow kind of thing. And I don't quite know what to think about that. But again, I had no problems with it, but I'm not American. I know a lot of Americans.
It was a pre-election kind of...
Well, not a pre-election.
You need to vote differently.
It just feels super cynical. Super cynical in that they're using something that gets people anxious and charged, and it's like, well, come see our movie.
My housemates, when I showed them the trailer, they immediately were like, "Oh, is this a skewering of the conflict in Gaza?" That was their big takeaway. So they didn't even think about.
Which, of course, wasn't even on his mind when the film went into post-production.
For me, when I watched the film and it was revealed at the start that it was this union between California and Texas, I was like, this is clever. They are very purposefully removing it from politics. Because one of the things I find so frustrating at the moment is how preachy things become.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to go to a film and be preached at. I've got critical thinking and I can apply it to that. So I would push back at those dissenters with Civil War, because I think the film is very intentionally and carefully positioned itself to be not so much apolitical, but it's what happens if we've got a fascist leader that's going to be pushing for the descent of democracy. That's what it's talking about. That's the scenario where California and Texas would come together because they would push against that. So
And I didn't feel that Offerman was particularly Trumpy, and he purposely tried to not make himself Trumpy. And I would agree with the fascist thing. He comes off fascistic, but he doesn't come off as inarticulate or stupid. Or he comes off as vain, because anybody in the White House would be vain. And I love that his seminal sort of closing line, what's the word? Last words were, "Don't let them kill me."
That'll do.
Yeah, that's right. And
Don't care. No.
And that's terrific. He doesn't need to come up with anything that is more obviously kill them all, or I was trying to do the right thing. I think that was well pitched.
It's an interesting juxtaposition, though, or maybe not juxtaposition, we used that word already today, but to put these films together, you're right, William, Apocalypse Now is so specifically about a real conflict.
Yes.
And does a really good job of saying a lot of things whilst not preaching a lot of things. It's kind of like just, it really is a mirror, I think, to that scenario. And then Civil War is doing something quite different by putting it in this fantasy world or this alternate reality scenario. In terms of the publicity, I mean, those filmmakers advertisers will be doing everything they can to get people get bums.
That's right.
I think. Have you guys listened to Alex Garland talk about this movie, like the publicity?
I've only read stuff. I haven't watched it.
It's not great, but again, that's neither here nor there. He's like, oh yeah, but really, we were. It's like, okay, just stop talking, buddy.
Yeah, he's not American. Let's bear in mind, and maybe that counts. But I think if he were an American filmmaker who had written and made it, then we would be inferring a lot more. We would be projecting a lot more opinion onto him. He is a storyteller who, and we're all, how we always say, no matter what country in the world we're from, if it's happening in America, we all know that it's going on, whereas we don't know what's going on in other smaller places like Norway. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think he is I think he's purposely being apolitical, not for cynical marketing reasons, but because his point is, as you say, his point is different. Yeah.
And I feel like the positioning of the main characters as photojournalists is a proxy for us as the general public watching these things through social media.
That's true.
Through, that's what I was taking away from it. That we are the bystanding photojournalist in a sense, because we are the receptors of what they give us. So...
And my favourite line in the whole thing, I'm so basic, but the fact that Kirsten Dunst says quite, and it is a little on the nose, but she says to Kaylee Spaney's character, Jessie, we don't ask questions, we record so that others ask questions, which at the time in the film when that's happening, you're like, yes, and this is necessary and it still needs to happen. And by the end of the film, Kirsten Dunst's character has already... She either says something or it's in a look or a scene. I don't remember, but I remember specifically that she has then is resigned to, actually, we can record and people can ask the questions and it's still not going to make a difference.
I think there's a line like, I did this job so that there would be no wars like this.
Oh, I see. That's it.
Like
That's what it is. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, let's do final thoughts. Okay. We're coming to the end of our podcast. William, I'll pass it to you rather than
Yeah, sure. Okay, Apocalypse Now, I enjoyed it much more this time round, not watching on VCD. Gosh, what a literal journey this movie is.
Yeah.
Again, I agree with you, Jeremy, in that the theatrical cut is just, it's tighter, it's much nicer storytelling. I still really enjoy kind of just spend a lazy, tense, anxious, fear-inducing afternoon with these folks on the river going to oblivion. So cool. Such a seminal work of cinema. Civil War, we haven't mentioned his name, ladies and gentlemen. Stephen McKinley Henderson.
Isn't he lovely? He played Sammy.
Oh my gosh. Every time he popped... Again, when Jeremy, when he popped up, we were like, it's the guy! It's the guy!
What do you know him
Because he's in
from?
Dune.
Yeah.
He's in Dune
and
his eyes go white and he talks to the computer. And I said, is he going to, he's just... There's a moment where they're trying to get connection somewhere. It's like, he should just Wi-Fi his brain.
And I always remember him from Lady Bird as the drama teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's just such a lovely
He's been
presence.
around forever, hasn't he? And suddenly he's having
this
big moment. Yeah.
Also, the soundscapes. We've talked about Apocalypse Now, but can we talk about how loud the Civil War gets in its final act?
Yeah.
Like the artillery and
do you know that there's no soundtrack?
Oh my gosh!
There's no score, right, in Civil War. There's no actual kind of like ambient music, and then there's like a number, and then there's no number. You know what I mean? Like a pop hit, and then there's a pop hit. So yeah.
So amazing cinematic experiences, the both of them.
Nice. Sarah?
Apocalypse Now, next time I watch it, which hopefully won't be for another 4 years, but I will watch the shorter version because I now feel like I've seen the plantation scene twice. I don't need to see it again. I know that it's there. Maybe I should go on Reddit and say this. Anyway, scene one, seen them all. No. So I would watch it again, but not in any great hurry. I don't enjoy Apocalypse Now, but as I mentioned earlier, I find it compelling and deeply, deeply admirable. So that's how I feel about that. Well done, Francis Ford Coppola. Looking forward to Megalopolis. By the way, did you know, of course, that Lawrence Fishburne is in Megalopolis playing Morpheus? So, and so won't that be cute? Because I don't know if they've been reconnected in the intervening years, but I think that's a nice thing. Civil War. Amazing. Absolutely loved it the first time round. Found it less gripping the second for the reasons that I've mentioned, because if you know what's going to happen, you know what's going to happen. But I was able to deeply appreciate on the second go the filmmaking, the camera work, the we are embedded with those who are embedded.
I never knew Alex Garland was actually a really good action director.
Absolutely. Gosh. There's a lot of talk online, not on Reddit actually, about the camera that he used and the choice. And it's a big deal. I think there was a Venice something camera and a something else with numbers and letters. I don't know. It's above my pay grade. But in order to be able to give us that experience, and I love that. So I hear you. I think he did a terrific job.
I've heard rumours as well that I've heard that he said that this will be his last directing outing. He's just back to writing. Yeah. Look, Civil War was one of the best times I've had in the cinema in a long time. Best times? I haven't had an experience like that in the cinema for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could watch the film anytime soon. I found it so gripping.
Yeah.
I was watching it through my fingers in parts.
You're holding up your
jacket.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I would wait if I were you, and I'm not being. I don't mean to be like take my advice. I'm not using it, but wait a long time. Seriously, take a long time and then come back to it, and you will love it.
Okay. But I thought it was fantastic for all the reasons we've talked about. Kirsten Dunst, really just, I find her so interesting. And the young actress who played Priscilla, I just think she's fantastic. It's like the Jennifer Lawrence effect or the Julia Roberts effect, where this new actress comes on the scene and is in everything. Because she's also the lead in the new Alien movie coming out later this year. Which should be great.
Oh, I'm pleased for that then.
Yeah. And then, as I said, Apocalypse Now is one of my favourite films of all time. I just love the general vibe of it. It has it hits a certain vibration or tone emotionally for me that I really enjoy coming back to. I have been to Vietnam, I've been to Cambodia, and so I couldn't help but kind of connect the film to my experience going to those countries and think about what is truthful and what is not, or what is still existing and what is not.
But hopefully if you went up the Mekong on those trips then...
Which I have been up the Mekong.
Yeah, hopefully it wasn't like that though.
No, it wasn't at all. But I went to some, certain places where they kind of educate about parts of the war.
Yeah.
But yeah, fascinating film. And it's part of Coppola's, sort of golden 70s as 4 brilliant films.
Yeah.
And I'm not holding out much hope for Megalopolis, if I'm honest. But hey, we'll see. It's always exciting when a powerhouse director brings something new to the
Self.
At age 82 or whatever as well, isn't he?
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoy our podcast, then please suggest it to your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context on SoundCloud, Spotify, Radio Public, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode, as well as give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, and until then,
No ora mai!